All right, welcome to the fourth game, second set of impressions, and our final video for the evening. Up this time is Belts of Iron. Explore, automate, and fight in this new open world factory automation game. Build factories connected by miles of conveyor belts. Manage power and fluid networks. Explore procedurally generated worlds filled with resources to harvest and hostile creatures to defeat. Play solo or online with friends. I will note that we were only handed one copy, so no online functionality was tested. That being said, um, multiplayer seems like it'll be a fun mode, but definitely not the overall point of the game. Um, but speaking of the point of the game, the everything from the title to all of the marketing material kind of obfuscates the actual point of the game. Um, that is, like, it's trying to sell the actual automation networks as what you're doing in the game, and that is true, but that's not your goal. They're the means to the end. And the end is shown at the beginning, i.e., you are somebody who has just crash landed on an alien world. Your job is to fill out your tech tree to the point where you can build a rocket.
As
So,
one
yes,
does.
but this actually makes this game different than a lot of these um, builder games because you actually do have a goal. This isn't just a sandbox that's saying here's a world, here's a bunch of resources, you know, go build the Trojan horse or, an 8-foot tall golden dildo or whatever.
Go overthrow capitalism. Wait, no, hold on.
That's a different thing entirely. Like, that's more civilization than Minecraft. Though, in terms of builder games, obviously the main inspiration is the infamous Factorio,
Mhm.
um, a game admittedly I have never played, but this is definitely I can already tell it's a different experience than Factorio.
I've seen
Um,
Factorio played, but I have never actually had the time or patience to play it myself.
right, but the main difference here is, Factorio is very much done from the perspective, bird's eye view, the God perspective, what have you, and is done in a very traditional style, i.e., you use the mouse, keyboard, menus, that sort of thing. Here,
Mhm.
this is different. You have an avatar, full 3D world. That changes the gameplay a lot,
It
not
might
for the
be
better.
it might be closer to something like Satisfactory, where you're playing as a dude.
Yeah, I think that would be a better comparison, honestly, because here's the thing: you have to physically go and build all these things. Um, it's a lot slower than the overhead perspective game,
Mhm.
2D or 3D. Um, and you're also going to appreciate the automation a lot more because, once again, these are physical objects that you have to guide through your avatar. So it's a very different kind of game feel when when you're laying down, say, conveyor belts with a mouse,
Mhm.
um, or insert any other sort of roadway or telephone poles or electrical. um, electric grid poles. Um,
Hmm.
you know, and then you have to actually guide a guy to put down all of the, all of the conveyor belt. It's a lot slower. Um, it's also pretty patchy. I definitely say that the biggest seam in the early access grid here, at least that I experienced, was there's a lot of clipping when you're putting down objects.
Hmm.
Oh, also, very weird tool that you use to uh, cut down trees and stuff. Um, it is one up on like Minecraft where you don't just use the fat of your hand to chop down a tree. Um, Instead, you are able to craft a crowbar.
And basically Gordon Freeman this bitch.
Yeah. Um, which kind of makes sense in the context of using it to break down your ship.
You actually
Like,
break down
okay,
your
that is,
ship before you make the crowbar.
I mean, the other pieces of your ship.
Hmm.
Like, there's more than one piece. You will actually find several pieces, um, which gives you like copper or iron ore.
Hmm.
The point is using your crowbar to chop down a tree just looks weird.
Yeah.
Like honestly, even the stone stuff makes more sense than the tree.
Yeah, I could see
But
you using
whatever.
a crowbar to break off, hunks of a stone.
Yeah. But whatever. It's clearly all metaphorical representation. It doesn't matter that much. Um, but yeah, this also does build itself out in stages. Like it's not one of these games that's going to overwhelm you with choice. That's what a tech tree is for. It limits things to a manageable um, feel, and at the heart of your operation is actually your research table, because that's where you go to actually unlock the next thing in your tech tree. Yeah, and obviously the beginning stuff is fairly straightforward. Um, your first job is going to be to secure large deposits of the base material, of which there are six, although some are more base than others. That is to say, the materials that you are going to be working with the most slash from the start are stone, copper, iron, and trying to remember the fourth one, wood. No, wood might be the fifth. That's actually the resource you're going to have the most trouble with. Oh, right, coal. Coal is actually a bit further down the lane. And then later on, it's further joined by oil and what they call fuse stone, ferret stone, something like that. It's a gem with like mystical properties and also usually guarded by guard dogs.
You know,
Um,
as one does.
yeah. Well, that's where you have to fashion the weapon, which is a bit down the line in terms of the tech. Um, but really, what you're going to be doing first is securing coal. Iron in particular is going to be the resource that you're going to be working with all of the time outside of wood. wood is the material that you use to, to make everything go. I think until you get coal, I honestly didn't try coal in any of the machines, but wood is what you're going to find first. The thing about wood is, okay, you might see big deposits of it, i.e., forests. But here's the long term problem of working with wood. When you chop down a tree, it doesn't replenish.
It's not renewable in this one.
Yes, which is, I know, kind of actually counterintuitive to how wood actually works. Like, it's the resource here that is actually renewable.
Hmm.
Um, I guess stone as well, because it's not one of these games that's differentiating marble and granite and obsidian and all that stuff.
Right.
It's just stone, which is literally all over the goddamn place. You know, point is, you know, you're going to be chopping down trees. They're not going to grow back. You're going to have to go further and further out to collect the wood, because you're going to do the convenient thing. You're going to chop down the trees and the logs that are closest to you. And obviously, the more of a network you have, the more fuel you're going to need.
Hmm.
Another thing, uh, another helpful tip is, if you're not running a certain part of the network, like if you don't need to bring in stone at that particular moment in time, um, go and rescue your fuel. Because even if a machine is idle, it'll still draw power, which actually
Hmm.
does make it more realistic, because that's how it works in real life. In fact, there's an actual term for this: energy vampirism. And it'll note on the charts that it's a literal fraction of the power wattage used while things are active,
Coal
but
can be
it's
used as
still,
a fuel.
that's what I thought. I just never got around to using it as a fuel,
Hmm.
which actually does take away from one of the few pressures that exist in the game as it is now. you know that is actually part of the issue. This is why we don't call these reviews. These are impressions, because, like, I do not know if the developer plans to introduce time pressures of any sort. Um, because I could absolutely see that becoming a thing of some sort. Like, the game doesn't get boring, but it can definitely get monotonous at times. Um, just building up the network, and it'll get further along. Once again, going back to iron. Um, Iron needs to be refined into iron plate, and then from iron plates, it can be used to build various other things. And eventually, you're going to build a location that makes iron plate, among other things. A refinery, and then you will take another conveyor belt and then link it up to another um, building that does another thing. I did this in order to get the I forget what they call the data researcher. Um, or I could have a steady stream of data researchers in order to move along the tech tree. Um, I got to the point where I needed the electrical variety of this, and then I felt I was good. I spent a good 5 hours with this game,
Hmm.
and my impressions of this are favorable, but I just don't see the addicting X factor that made Factorio such a time sink.
I think
It
the
really,
X factor for this might be co-op, if that's because the Steam page did mention that they want to do co-op,
mm,
so I could imagine that being the like a factor is doing
Well, if
this
they
with a
wanted us
friend.
to review that, they should have given us more codes.
I don't even know if it's been
true enough.
implemented yet. This is an early
Yeah,
access.
yeah. Once again, this is why it's all impression. Um,
Hmm.
my impressions is favorable, but it definitely needs more content. Um, maybe a time pressure mode, but that might require some other things. Certainly, some more modes, because like I find the whole 3D avatar perspective to add a drag factor to it that isn't present in point and click styling. If this makes sense, I think I think you have to play a fair amount of city builders to understand the parlance and games of
Hmm.
that nature. I don't know. It's like I just would rather prefer to play this with an pure keyboard and mouse setup. But I suppose this genre has already been spoken for in that regard. So,
Hmm.
ironically, the thing that makes this thing stick out is also the thing that makes it not as good, at least in my estimation. And I don't think any amount of polish or content will entirely fix the issue. Um, let's see. Also, you'll want to bring your own soundtrack. Um, Probably a good thing. Like this is the kind of game to listen to. I don't know, whatever music you happen to be into, because it doesn't have any music really implemented yet.
Hmm.
Once again, it's really hard to nail down the particulars of what's coming because the dev is um, knows some stuff that they want to include. Um, some of the ideas include trains for long distance transportation. I think that might have already been implemented because I'm seeing trains in the trailer,
Hmm.
like drones for smaller, shorter logistics. Yeah, that's at the end of the tech tree. Drone, more varied enemies. I think this game could do with that and more enemies in general. A player jetpack, new weapons, more power generations, lots of base building pieces, and more. Now, get the feeling that the dev has an overflow of ideas,
Hmm.
which is why early access is being charted at least a year. And this game came out in early access only in late May of this year. So it's spending some time here. This is important to know. Um, Also, this game will be getting price increases with major updates and again at full release. So it sounds like it's going to be clocking in a series of price increases. So that means the price determination here is especially important because is it worth it to get in? Maybe not on the ground floor, but certainly on the first couple of stories, I think.
Hmm.
Because this game is currently costing 15 bones. Yeah, I think this game is worth $15. Particularly if you're looking for a Zen experience
Yeah.
or
Something to dip
something.
your feet in, especially because like stuff like Factorio and
Yeah,
Satisfactory are running like 35.
yeah, yeah. That's the other thing. This game will probably cost 35, $40. You know,
If it
at
makes it, yeah,
launch.
if it makes it to final release.
So yeah, I think that's about it on Belts of Iron here. So
Okay.
that brings us to the week ahead. If I can get to the right page. Let me see. So, coming up on Wednesday, August 19th, we will be welcoming hit of Artifactium Game program. And they are currently developing a game called Oh No, You're the Hero. Like, bit of a weird title. Oh, sorry, it's Oops, You're the Hero.
Still a weird title.
Yeah. It's their debut game. Um, but Artifactium Games is an indie studio founded in Chicago with the goal of crafting games that speak to the tiny weirdo in every player's heart. Honestly, that's a lot of indie studios. With Oops, You're the Hero as a starting point, Artifactium Games is a place where creativity is to be celebrated and where the creators are put first. That does beg to ask me how big this studio is, because if they're a solo dev, well, I guess it's good that they respect themselves. Anyway, we do have a new episode of Moonhawk Studios Presents happening. No guest this week there. So instead, I have planned.
Is this plan involve a violation of the Geneva Convention?
No, not that harsh.
Not yet.
But it does involve transport.
Oh God.
Anyway, on Friday, August 21st, we'll be welcoming Arn- Arnau, sorry, Arnau, Arnau. To be
Arno.
clear, that Arnaud, there we go. And Claudia of Croissant Cat Game, although they have yet to check in, which is a bit concerning. I'll give them another ping like tomorrow or something. Anyway, we'll be talking about Be the Best, a local multiplayer video game on the subject of bees and pollinators that aims to bring attention to how necessary these are for the survival of life on our planet. Honestly, the Dr. Doofenshmirtz meme is hitting us, because if we had a nickel for every time we've covered about a bee game about how important bees are, we'd have 2 nickels, which is not a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right?
Yeah.
So, on that note, until next time, I shall wish you good gaming.